with with 1,000 new people moving here per day. It's just really indicative of what everyone was looking for, right? Why was everyone moving here? Well, we had relatively affordable housing. When you look at other major markets throughout the country, Texas was relatively affordable. I would argue that's kind of changing. But still, in the grand scheme of things, there are lots of still little pockets in Texas where it is affordable. Obviously, in the big four, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas Fort Worth, things have become less affordable as they were 5 years ago, but still affordable. Texas had low taxes. I mean, no state income tax. That's a huge benefit. You're seeing a lot of corporate relocations. Case in point, Elon Musk and his entire operation, and lots of folks fleeing to Texas because of low taxes. And then, of course, the looser COVID-19 restrictions. It sent a lot of people here. I just met with an escrow officer that I'm trying to recruit to our company. And I said, well, why did you move here? She moved here from California. And she said, well, it was 2020 and they were forcing my kids to wear masks. And we literally just said, let's go to Texas. And we picked a place on the map and here we are. And I think I was kind of shocked by that. Do you have family here? Do you know anybody here? Nope, they didn't know a single soul. So that was the first time I'd kind of heard that. I mean, typically people move here because they have family here or a friend here or somebody told them about it. But this is a lady who just said, nope, we're moving here. We want looser restrictions for our children. We don't want them wearing masks in schools. And I think that's the story on repeat for, upwards of 1,000 people a day at some point. So, and the influx of major employers moving to Texas. So we have really been very, very lucky in the real estate industry because as realtors and title companies and mortgage companies, we've been able to see the benefits of all those folks moving into Texas. And so this is a slide from mid-year 2022, and you'll see this exact slide with some new bullet points at the end of the presentation. I update this presentation twice yearly. And I looked back at mid-year 2022, and it's kind of fun to reminisce and remember where we were and what I was saying at that point in time. And at that point in time, housing demand was changing rapidly. The inventory was increasing, but price reductions were starting to hit. We were really concerned about inflation. When I would teach this in person, I would ask people like, well, how have you noticed the price of chicken? What about the price of salmon? Fuel costs were starting to rise. So we were really having some real concerns about inflation. And that's really where interest rates were starting to creep up. And people were kind of just starting to get uneasy about that. And first-time homebuyers were being priced out of the market. I wouldn't necessarily say that in Texas, our first-time homebuyers were priced out of the market, but they were being priced out of the market. And rents, meanwhile, were soaring. So you had a bunch of folks that were renting, maybe intending to buy at some point, and their rents were coming up like crazy. And so it was starting to, does it make sense to buy right now? Because you've got interest rates going up and inflation is a concern. And I really want to buy a house, but now my rent is soaring. So we were in this really interesting dynamic back in mid-year 2022. The unemployment rate was back down to pre-pandemic levels at 3.6%. And there was just dramatic price inflation. This is really an interesting thing that I wrote back in mid-year 2022. Austin was number 2 and DFW was number 18 on the national radar as overvalued markets expected to see price corrections. Well, that's exactly what happened. Not spoiler alert. So at the end of 2022, just a few months later, this slide changed already. So housing demand was slowed by rising interest rates. Housing affordability was quickly diminishing. And the Fed was coming out and saying, if you remember, we want joblessness. We are trying to force us into a recession. It's the only way we can control inflation. And so they were really, really trying to get those unemployment numbers up, but they were staying flat at 3.7%. They just were not accomplishing their goal of forcing us into a recession, which is interesting because we've been on this brink of are we in a recession? Are we going to recession? Are we not going to hit a recession for now 2.5 years? But the house prices were depreciating, and Austin, just a few months after the mid-year 2022 slide, Austin was seeing the largest depreciation across the board by November 2022. Interest rates were expected to continue to rise in 2022 and 2023, which they did. And I wrote, until we see progress on inflation. Well, we really haven't seen any progress on inflation. Nothing has really changed on the inflation front, and the unemployment rate has stayed flat, as you'll see later on. And Texas was going to reach 30 million people in 2022. We were ranked first still for residents added from 2020 to 2021, about 850 net new residents a day. So that 1,000 a day number, you'll see that number, but you'll see 850 net because we were losing some people for, reasons, retirement, whatever, relocation. So in Texas overall, we've just seen soaring prices followed by a cool down. This slide really demonstrates that. So Dallas is that maroon line, and at the end you'll see January at the bottom at the x-axis, you'll see January 2025. You'll see that Dallas is basically flat, but we're the highest. I'm in Dallas Fort Worth. With Houston, San Antonio, and then Austin sinking down. But you can kind of see what's happened. The median price year over year, Austin started out, really in the middle, took a big dip, came all the way up, and then now has come down. So it's really interesting kind of what's happened when you look at all the markets independent of one another in Texas. And here's what's happened with inventory. So that you see Austin is that gray line again. Inventory shot up, and then it just came, for lack of a better word, crashing back down. So while Austin started on the top in this slide, you can see by January 2025, it's now the lowest of all the big four markets. Here's a snapshot of the Texas real estate market overall. So this is Texas overall, and then we're going to break it down by Dallas Fort Worth and Austin, and you will see some stats for all the markets in these slides. But we had a strong year-end finish statewide. Texas actually had year-over-year growth. Our home prices are higher than they were a year ago, and we are getting some more inventory, which has been a concern for a while with tight inventory levels. We're hoping for a more balanced market. I'm not sure. I've been teaching this now for years. I've never been able to say, oh, we're in a balanced market. 6 months of inventory, it's absolutely perfect. It's not a buyer's market. It's not a seller's market. I feel like that just never, that's a perfect unicorn. I'm not sure that ever is going to happen. It's always, we're in a seller's market, we're in a buyer's market. And I'm not sure the balanced market is actually attainable, but we'll see. Maybe one of these days we'll have a perfectly balanced market. I can put that on my slide. And Texas, the median home price is $335,000 and some change, and we're 63 average days on market. Building permits are actually up 17.7% month over month in December. DFW having that biggest increase at 24.7%. San Antonio and Houston are up 2.5 and 5.8 respectively. And then Austin is actually down just a tad. What's interesting about that is we've been talking about single family housing starts and building permits for a few years, and they have definitely been down. Price of labor, price of lumber, all the things, right? The inflation was a concern for these builders, and they weren't really wanting to build spec homes because then they just hold those on their inventory. So you're seeing some of the big builders with inventory sitting around and offering discounts and incentives to come and buy their existing inventory. You're seeing the small custom builders take their close in some markets. We actually have a builder that we're friends with and we call on regularly, and he had markets in San Antonio, Austin, Houston, and DFW. And in the last 2 years, he has wound down those operations in Austin and San Antonio, and he focuses primarily on DFW now. And I think he's still got some lingering stuff in Houston, but you are seeing the builders kind of make a change and make a shift. So it is interesting that building permits are back up again. That shows some confidence on behalf of the builders that they believe that they are going to be able to sell these homes, which is refreshing actually. And then on that top right corner, this is interesting. The small market sales are up statewide. The big four are down. And when I say big four, I'm referring to DFW, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. So it's those smaller markets that are boosting overall sales and keeping Texas strong, if you will, while the markets that are big are still kind of down. Really interesting. Here's a look at DFW. So starting on the bottom left there, the DFW single family starts increased 11.6% month over month. There were 3,670 units. New listings are increasing. I think that's kind of the story everywhere. And Dallas grew by 15.97% year over year, which compared to a 7.6% increase statewide. So Dallas definitely has the listings coming on the market. Median sales price is up slightly year over year, just under 400,000. But average sales price rose to 506,000. So you look at people talk about average and they talk about median, and they're really two totally different numbers. The median just being the middle number and the average being an accumulation of the lowest price homes all the way up to the highest price homes, and then just taking that and dividing it out. So you'll see that those numbers differ tremendously. We focus really on the median number, but that average number is definitely a valuable piece of information too. I couldn't actually find the March average days on market. So these are actually, so the days to sell is different than days on market, right? So I did find the March days to sell. It's 95 days. That includes the time from contact to close. So days to sell means the date that it was listed until the date that it actually closed. So you're seeing 95 days. I kept the average days on market on this slide. They were probably about 45 days old though. Dallas was sitting at 58, Austin at 77, San Antonio at 75, and Houston at 53. Those numbers have been slightly increasing by 2 or 3 days every single month for several months now. We are seeing an uptick on days on market and days to sell. And here's a snapshot of Austin. Austin sales volume is down. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody here. Back to my mid-year 2022 slide, that it was considered maybe one of the most overvalued markets and that we were predicting some price corrections. I think we have seen a softening. Sales volume is down. And I think Austin's in this real transitional phase right now where everyone rushed there and moved there, and it created this huge pent up demand. And so prices went up, and now they're maybe just more adjusting a little bit to maybe what they should be, arguably. But Austin is a phenomenal place to live. And obviously lots of people moved there, and we're just seeing a small correction as a result of that. So sales volume is down, but new listings are increasing just like they are kind of statewide. Austin was up 10.45% year over year, which is higher than that statewide increase. So Austin definitely is getting some houses on the market. Median home price is $449,000, which is down just a little less than 1% year over year. So not a huge price correction, but a softening for sure. But average sales price is up. So that's kind of interesting. You have the median home price going down, but you have the average sales price going up, which is a really interesting statistic. So the average sales price in Austin is now $592,000. The days to sell, again, that's listing all the way to close, is 112, and Austin is sitting with 4.1 months of inventory. Here's a realtor.com slide that I love because it lays out the years from 2017 all the way through 2024, and it shows the prices. So 2017 is that bottom line, that blue line, followed by 2018 is the one right above that, 2019, 2020, 2021. And you can just see if you start at the bottom and look up that the prices have just every single year gone up. And you can see that the last 3 years up there at the $440,000 range, 2022, 2023, and 2024 kind of all merged together. And they've ended the year really very together. So while we did see huge increases year over year from 2017 all the way through 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 rose and then kind of came back down and softened as the summer and fall months, winter months progressed. And here's a similar slide showing the total listings, kind of that same trend. And again, you can see the seasonal changes. So you have January on the bottom, February all the way through December, if you're looking on the x-axis there in the bottom, and you can see that we typically do have that seasonal increase in March and April, kind of remains strong through the summer. And then we have that seasonal decrease through the fourth quarter. And again, you have those lines showing 2017, 2018, but they're really almost reversed because we're talking about total listings now, not sales price. And so total listings in 2017 were at 14, well, what is that? 1,400,000. So it's probably 140,000, right? And then you can see on the bottom line 2020 is 2022 is that yellow line, and it came all the way up and then dropped back down. So we ended the year with a really kind of low-ish inventory, comparatively speaking, to prior years. This is the Realtor.com 2025 home sales forecast. So along the bottom, you have the year and the month. So starting on the left, that's month 7 of 2023. And then it goes all the way through. On the right there is month 12 of 2025, so December. So this slide was generated in the end of December 2024. That's what that dashed line is in the middle there. And you can see that sales counts, these are predictions, these are forecasts. The red bars are showing sales counts in the thousands. So Realtor.com is saying, we think that starting in April and in May, June, July, as that red bar increases, we think the sales counts in the thousands are going to increase. That black line going through the bar is indicating year over year percentage. And so what they're saying is, we think that in February and March, we're going to have a year over year drop. That actually happened. We had a year over year drop in February. And then coming back into April, May, June, July, as you can see that black line going back up, they're predicting a year over year increase compared to prior years. This I included, and actually I'm happy to send my slides to the gens and they can get these out to everybody. But for any numbers nerds out there like me, this source of business, the Realtor.com research 2024 data, is really neat because it gives you an overview of the 50 largest metros. I just took the first part of the page because they're in alphabetical order, and we were lucky that Austin and Dallas Fort Worth fell in that. But this is really interesting. Like, look at Austin there at the top. Median list price per square foot versus December 2019, it is up over 51%. That is amazing. That is mind-blowing. And Dallas Fort Worth right behind it at 41.7%. So we have seen huge increases. I know it's easy to forget, everybody thinks their house is worth X, but just 5 years ago, the housing prices were 40, 50% less. Really, really powerful data. I love this. I don't know who ever keeps up with this, but I do keep up with these, what Realtor.com is calling the hottest markets. And they put this data out monthly. This is one from October 2024. And this is always my opportunity to give a little dig at my hometown. I was born in Rochester, New York. And for like 2 years, Rochester, New York was at the top of this list. And I used to tell realtors, like, you don't want to move to Rochester, New York. Trust me, you have to shovel snow to go anywhere. But it finally fell off the list. But it's really interesting what's on the list because it's markets that really were not on my radar. In fact, I had no idea where Manchester, New Hampshire was. And I Googled it and read about it. And it's a lovely little suburb right outside Boston. It's adjacent to Boston, meaning close enough that you can live in Manchester, but commute into Boston. So it's zero tax, zero state income tax, sales tax. It's just affordable. I use that word loosely because the median list price is still 572,000. But it is considered in Realtor.com's eyes one of the hottest markets. And it's just interesting to watch these hottest markets. If you pulled this from 2 years ago, it was all Dallas Fort Worth, Austin, all the Sun Belt states. And it's completely changed. It's all now Midwest and Northeast markets. So where are we going from here? What does this mean? What does this look like for Texas, for us that are, making our living here? And really, I think it's just been, for anybody who's been in the market, more than 5 years, we've kind of seen it all. As I said earlier, I started in title in 1998, so I have gone through a couple of downturns, but it's easy to kind of get bogged down in the downturn and not stay focused on the grind and making sure that we continue on. But I don't believe that this is the new normal by any means. I think that we still are in quite a bit of a downturn. And although the last few weeks I have seen an uptick in orders, and in talking with realtors and lenders, they're saying the same thing. So maybe that's indicative of a nice little spring selling season increase, which would be nice. So part of the problem, if you will, in why this market is not thriving anymore. I mean, thriving, I say that's loosely. We aren't in any sort of a boom for sure, is that there is so much equity in the homes. So remember that dramatic price inflation coupled by low interest rates, and then the prices of homes went through the roof. 40-50% increases in median price per square foot, right? So what that means is that there is over 35 trillion in household equity in the United States, where people are sitting on all this money, which is also, by the way, why we're not seeing foreclosures. So if you start talking to people about, I think there's going to be a foreclosure crisis. I don't think there's going to be a foreclosure crisis. Why would you give your house away or walk away from your house when you had to put money into it to get into it, and you've got $100,000-$200,000 of equity? Let's just talk about the first-time home buyer that bought a house in, let's say, 2021. First-time home buyer, let's just say $350,000 first-time home buyer. They had to bring money to the table. This isn't like 2007 where they were doing, no income, stated income loans. People did 0% down. They got into these homes with no money in it, and then the price corrected, and so they just walked away, right? So we had all these foreclosures. That's not what we have now. What we have now is people with skin in the game and equity, and they're just not willing to walk away. They would rather sell and take their money than to walk away. So I actually have a daughter who did that. She is 29. She bought a house in 2021. It appreciated about $100,000. And next thing I know, she's calling her realtor back to list it. And I mean, I'm like pulling my hair out. Like, you can't list your home. She's like, it's an investment. We made $100,000. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, you've got to be able to re-enter the market. But I couldn't talk her out of it. She saw all this money and she pulled it out. Talked till I was blue in the face. Could not get her to do it. But there's just no reason for anybody to go into foreclosure right now. There's just too much built-in equity. And speaking of built-in equity, what that means is we have what we call the lock-in effect. And so when you have a lot of folks, pie chart here at 75% of folks, about 75% are sitting with a mortgage less than 5%. It makes it really, really hard to convince people that have all this equity in their home. They have a 3% interest rate. Why would I move? Right? Like, why would I move? So I just told this story at the last time I taught this class a couple of years ago. I had my eye on a house in town here that was going to be perfect if it ever came on the market. And it was in the right location. It had the right amount of space. I've just kind of had my eye on this house. Now, I'd never seen the inside. This is my speculation from the outside, but my ex-husband is actually a real estate agent and his best friend lives next door. So he calls me up a couple of years ago and he says, you're never going to believe it. Your house is going on the market. And I'm like, oh my God, what? He goes, I can get you in beforehand and we can just do a private sale. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm like, I'm not ready to move. This is not what I had in mind this month. But given that it was like our dream home, I ran over there on a Saturday and looked at this home. It was beautiful. I loved it. I said to my husband, he said, I think we have to buy it. I mean, this is perfect for us. It's what we thought. And meanwhile, my 13-year-old son is in the truck crying because he doesn't want to move and this whole thing. So I did what all good people do. I called my best friend and I said, I have a really difficult decision to make and I need a margarita and we're going to go to a patio and we're going to talk about this. Well, I had her meet me at the patio of this local Mexican restaurant. And on my way over there, I grabbed my Texas Excel Agent app and I ran the numbers on what it would look like for me to sell my house, take some of that equity, roll it into the new home. This is when interest rates were kind of creeping up. They weren't where they were today, but they were definitely higher than my 2.75% that I'm sitting on right now. And long story short, it was going to triple my mortgage payment. So there was just no way. I didn't care that this was my dream house, that I loved it. There was just no way that I was willing to do that. And me, along with 88 million other homeowners, are in that same exact situation. So what you're finding now, as everybody here knows, is the folks that are moving are typically not choosing to move unless it's something like a divorce, a relocation, a death, some sort of life event that is causing them to move. And otherwise, everybody sitting here with a 2.75% interest rate is a victim of what we call the.
Something about that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want you guys, because I know that can feel like, oh, okay, guys, now what do we do? Like, right? There's all these people that don't want to move. But I want you to think about that as an opportunity. If we know who doesn't want to move, then that means we also know who does want to move, right? If Amy said, then we know it's, what do they call it? The 4Ds or the whatever, the death, divorce, diamonds, degrees, right? Is that something like that? But then when you're doing your marketing, right, and you're really looking at opportunities for prospective clients, when you are talking on video, when you're posting things, those are the people you talk to, because those are the people that are likely to move. And so here's a really simple example, and I'm sorry, Amy, to do this, but I want to give people hope, because I think there's a lot of hope, and I think that people don't take advantage of markets like this, right? And then they just sit and wait. So when you see someone, just your friend, right, who has a child who's maybe their youngest child that, they had another child go to college the year before, their youngest, and I'm giving you a real life example right now. Their youngest child is now a junior. Their oldest child went to college last year. And what are they now doing? They're moving to get closer to the high school because they're sick of driving so far. They're downsizing because they know their kid is going to go to college soon, right? They're getting ready for that transition in their life. So start looking for people who are in that transition, right? They got married recently and they're gonna have kids soon. Their kids are getting older and they're gonna graduate from high school, or they're most likely not gonna come back from college. Like, really start looking for those opportunities, celebrate those opportunities with them, be there for them through those moments as you would normally, but keep an eye out for that. And then you can be the person that they think of when they're ready to move.
Yeah, for sure. My last slide actually talks a little bit about that stuff.
My
But
bad, my
for
bad.
sure, yeah, no, it's all good. And I'm actually in that exact same situation. It's funny, Jenny. My youngest son is a junior in high school, and so 2 years ago, talk about buying the dream house. Great. I sat on it. I didn't do it. We stayed put. It is a very realistic possibility that in a year and a half or 2 years, we absolutely downsize. And what my husband and I are talking about doing, and this is a good opportunity for every agent here on the Zoom today, is we're talking about renting our home out because rental rates are so high, and then going and doing something else. By something else, I mean maybe buy something smaller that we have obviously less down in or something, and just kind of writing out that good rental opportunity while keeping the home. So there's always opportunities, but we're going to be a buyer for sure. Even if we don't end up listing and selling, we will move into something else. Oops, I moved my mouse. Sorry, y'all. There we go. This slide I love, because we forget sometimes that people, especially the kids these days, and we have 5 kids, and like I said, the youngest is a junior in high school, so lots of them are on their own in their 20s and buying homes and stuff. And we've got some that have done really well and they've made the investment in a home. And then I have one son who was so smart that he kept his first home, rented it out, bought a second home. He's great. He's 30. But then his sister is still renting. She's 27. I can't talk her into it. But these kind of statistics are why there's such a median net worth difference between owners and renters. And we need to kind of be reminding the 20 somethings that are renting, that you're spending probably virtually about the same, but you're not having the benefit of that wealth, that growth in wealth, due just simply due to appreciation in home, just simply due to that 40% increase that we saw in median price per square foot since December 2019 and today. So for anybody that was 25 years old, bought the home in 2019, and they've got it today, they've in essence built their wealth without doing anything differently. Meanwhile, had they been renting, their rents are soaring. So there's some really powerful statistics around this. And agents, be thinking about who in this category. Our app is a phenomenal tool. There's going to be a QR code at the end to download it, and you can run all kinds of scenarios for your clients and say, hey, if they're spending $3,200 a month on rent right now, what does that look like for the buyer that decides, to get off the fence and actually purchase? When will they actually break even? And so you can calculate in some of those costs, which is exactly what this scenario does here. It's a buy now versus buy later screen. And this is also stuff that Lux Mortgage team can do for you, but it's
Super cool.
Yeah, it's so powerful to have these stats at your fingertips, because if you buy now at 450,000, your loan amount is 405, your interest rate is 6.75, but if you refi and your payment is 3986. Now, you have to factor in the appreciation, right? So the appreciation rate of 3.5%, your estimated future value is 482. Now put that on hold, you refinance in 2 years and your payment goes down to 3591. If you wait and buy in 2 years at a 1% interest rate drop, let's just say we're at 5.75, that's what the assumption is here, that is back to a payment of 3988. So you're missing out on the 2 years of building that equity, and you end up with the exact same payment. And here's another one, and people are visual. So our app takes some of these stats and you can customize them and put in your own prices, your own down payment, especially if you know somebody that's kind of in this category of renting, hasn't made the decision to own. It's a perfect time actually to get in the market because nobody ever looked back and said, wow, 10 years ago, my house was worth so much more. Right. So it's always appreciating. And so these are just really great ways that you can take this information and share it with people. This one in particular is showing that you will break even in 3 years and 7 months. And it's factoring in the cost of owning versus renting. So, yes, when you own, you have money that you bring to close, you have money for maintenance, but you also have the appreciation. You also factor in a tax savings. And then renting, your total rent for those 3 years and 7 months is the $142,000. So you're going to break even, but then you're going to build $100,000 of equity. So it's things like that that people just don't see. They don't see the real numbers until you lay it out. So we're definitely seeing the trend right now is price reductions in new listings. Here's a snapshot of Netris, which is the North Texas Real Estate Information System, and this was taken about 3 weeks ago or so. And as you can see, that price decrease was still the hottest tab there with 4,660 of them in 7 days, but about 4,000 new listings. And I left the January 2024 data in that left-hand bottom corner there, and it was sort of the same story, but with less numbers. So interest rates, where are we headed? It's funny because when I do this presentation, it's typically the most exciting part. Everybody kind of wants to know what I think about interest rates and what the research is showing. And this year, it's a little anticlimactic because I think that everyone's really in the know. I mean, most times I teach this class in the last 3 months, people are like, yep, that's what I've heard too. So it's almost like there's nothing earth shattering that I'm going to share today, other than maybe this. Um, these interest rate predictions are typically never right. So this was the 2022 slide where NAR thought that there would be a 3.7% average interest rate. MBA predicted 4%. They were wrong. This is the January 2022 MBA forecast for 2021, 2022, and 2023. All of these numbers were wrong. MBA actually puts this out quarterly, and they predict by the quarter what they think the interest rates will be, and they've been wrong. Here's a historical look at interest rates. I love this one because I think that it's easy to get caught in we are so high interest rates right now. And a lot of people still on that wait and see program, but the average rate since 1971 is 7.73%. We're arguably about a point lower than that, which is still really great news. I am actually thankful that we didn't hit 9%, 10%, that I thought possibly could happen, even if just for a little bit. So I'm sort of thankful that we've hovered in the sixes. So we talk about this a lot, but when the Fed cuts their rate, that does not mean a drop in mortgage rates. Now, you will see those trend lines typically coincide. And the reason for that is, think of the Fed rate. The Fed is the rate that the central bank is loaning between banks, right? So there's a central bank, and then the banks have a rate that they can loan from each other. Then if that rate is higher, typically what happens is they pass that higher rate down to consumers. So you will see things like auto loans, mortgage rates be a little higher. It's not a perfect coinciding relationship, though. And as you can see, the Fed cutting rates has not changed mortgage rates. They are saying that should have 2 or 3 more rounds of rate cuts, but mortgage rates may not fall. And here, this is an NAR slide, and I think they're probably right. I think we're going to hover in the sixes. But NBA and Fannie Mae and Realtor.com are a little more hopeful. NBA is saying they think that it will fall to 5.9% by year end. Fannie Mae is saying the same thing, 5.9 to 5.6 throughout the year. They might already be wrong since we're in April and we're not anywhere close to 5.6 to 5.9. But Fannie Mae was thinking that we would stay below 6 this year. And Realtor.com is saying an average rate of 6.3, edging down to 6.2 by the end of 2025. I would probably most agree with Realtor.com. I think that maybe overall we'll see an average of 6.3 and 6.2. I would love to agree with Fannie Mae and dip down to 5.9, but I think we're going to stay in the sixes. And here's the Realtor.com key housing indicators. This is, again, showing that 2025 6.3% average, 6.2% year end. Existing homes for sale inventory year over year, this thing's gonna be up 11.7%. It's probably about right. And the home ownership rate is at 65%. Rent growth just growing slightly at 0.1. That's probably also right. You can see on the bottom right corner there that rent growth from 2013 to 2019 went up 5.2%. I would argue that that could be slightly higher overall, but that's what they're saying, only 5.2%. So here's the slide where I make kind of the wrap it up, put the bow on it. And here's what 2025, March 2025, again, I wrote this a couple weeks ago. But here's what the Texas real estate market is looking like. Housing affordability is very low with rising insurance costs at the forefront of discussions. We didn't talk about that, but insurance costs is also keeping some people on the sidelines. And I think what's happening is because at the title side, we're seeing a huge fallout during option period. The only thing I can assume is that people are getting excited, they're writing offers, and they haven't totally been pre-approved with a lender. They haven't really dug into the numbers on what it's going to cost to get into a home, including taxes and insurance. And those rising insurance costs are becoming a factor. And I think we're all talking about it, right? Everybody's insurance is through the roof from people getting canceled. I just got a notice of cancellation on my Grapevine house. I have a rental house in Grapevine, Texas, and I haven't ever placed an insurance claim on it at all, ever. But the letter just said that they aren't going to be insuring in that area anymore due to too many high claims with storms and hail and stuff. So it's, if you're even lucky, you can get insurance, but if you do get it, it's going to cost you. While housing inventory has grown, it's still below what is needed for a balanced market. And again, I'm not sure the balanced market exists. I think it's a unicorn, but and we don't want to talk politics when we're talking about real estate, but there is so much going on right now with this new presidential administration that it absolutely remains a wild card. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with the tariffs. Will that cause a slowdown? Will that actually even happen? So week to week, that's kind of a wild card situation. We're not really sure what the impact of that's going to be. And apparently now, President Trump's upset with the situation with the Fed chairman. We really need to keep a Fed chairman. There's a reason we have a Fed chairman. So it'd be interesting to see how all that plays out, and then how it translates to the real estate market for sure. I think there will be 2 Fed interest rate decreases. They are saying 2 to 3. I think it'll be 2. We'll see. The lock-in effect is definitely keeping sellers on the sidelines. But again, that doesn't mean there aren't people buying. That doesn't mean there aren't people selling. There are people buying and selling for sure. It's just kind of a little bit about getting creative and finding those people, right? And buyers are gaining more confidence to enter the market. So that is a plus, because a year ago, even a year and a half ago, what people were saying is, I'm waiting for the rates to come down. I'm waiting for the rates to come down. And I was hearing it on repeat. Not necessarily sure that's the case anymore. I think people have accepted that 6 to 7% is the new normal, and everyone is payment driven in this world we live in, right? So they go to the home and garden show and they want a new hot tub. It's only $149 a month. Right. So everyone is payment driven. So at the end of the day, I think people are caring less about interest rates and more about what the payment is and can I afford the payment. I just read a statistic yesterday that the issue is that about 35% of folks' income is now going directly to a mortgage payment. So typically we like to see that number 30% or less, but we're upwards of 35%. So while we've got, people buying at 6 to 7%, really at the end of the day, they're just payment driven. They just want to know that my mortgage is $2,500 a month. My hot tub that I bought at the home and garden show is $149. My car is $400, and I'm bringing in X number of dollars, and I can make all that work. So again, it's all about payment for most people. Unemployment rate is flat. It's actually at 4%. This slide says 4%, but I just read that it kind of came back down to like 3.8. So, but it's still just relatively flat. And the market should remain steady through 2025. And I did say slight seasonal increases in spring and summer, and we are seeing that. I had lunch yesterday with one of our title underwriters. So while I see things on a bigger scale than, say, an individual realtor, because we work with so many realtors, an underwriter sees things on even a larger scale because they have thousands upon thousands of transactions. So they're going to really notice those upward trends. And he said, yes, we're seeing increases in order counts across the board in Texas. So that's definitely positive moving into the spring and the summer. This is a quote from Lawrence Yun. He is the chief economist at National Association of Realtors. I've heard him speak 2 or 3 times. He's kind of like a walking encyclopedia on all things housing. Super smart and does a great job with it. His quote this year is, "Home sales momentum is building. More buyers have entered the market as the economy continues to add jobs. Housing inventory grows compared to a year ago, and consumers get used to the new normal mortgage rates between 6 and 7%." And then this is Selma Help. She's the chief economist at CoreLogic. The last group I taught this to said we don't like her, because she says the prospect of elevated mortgage rates throughout 2025 suggests that housing market activity will continue to be challenged. Lack of affordability and continuation of the lock-in effect will keep sellers on the sidelines. So the realtors were like, "No, we don't like her. No, boo on Selma." So some ideas on how to grow. I mean, you don't want to come out of a forecast presentation thinking, wow, this is like really depressing. But there's still ways to grow, right? Like there's still some great ways on showing your sellers how buy down the buyer's interest rate versus the price reduction will net them more. That's great. Use those Texas Excel agent apps to run buy versus rent and buy now versus buy later scenarios. Those are in the calculator section of our app, and there'll be a QR code at the end. You can scan and download that. It is really powerful to be able to take the numbers and show somebody. People tend to believe you when versus saying it. And we've had agents take these scenarios and do videos of them on their social media, showing the difference and getting people kind of to think about the investment in the long run versus, renting, and kind of, flushing money down the drain, so to speak. So again, be proactive on your social media, showing them those long-term interest rate trends. If you're still getting people saying, "Oh, interest rates," and overall benefits of homeownership. I mean, that's really what the key is. Is homeownership is it's an investment. It's a way to build wealth. You can kind of talk about those key talking points on when it comes to homeownership, and some of those slides that I showed earlier on the average wealth of a renter versus the average wealth of a homeowner. And if you remember, the renter's wealth just sort of stays static, right? Where the homeowners grows because you have the benefit of the appreciation of the home. Think outside the box. I mean, you can build relationships with divorce attorneys. I mean, like I said, people are still making moves, and a lot of them because of death or divorce. Probate attorneys can be good referral sources for agents. Really, anyone referring real estate business, financial planners, designers, lots of people, home stagers. I mean, there's just a lot of people to build relationships with that will have an influence on which realtor they're choosing. And get creative with marketing, video. If you're not taking advantage of Jen and Jen at the Hive, they can definitely help you with that. That's where they shine, is to take your business and get it on social media and get videos going. They're great at it. I think personal connections aren't dead. I think there's still a lot of value in the pop by. Think about who your sphere of influence is. And still, back in the day, 25 years ago, what worked for realtors still works today. And that is, they were going by their clients like quarterly. And so whether that meant they were putting a note in the mail, saying happy anniversary, you've been in your home 5 years, or dropping off a pumpkin on their front porch on Halloween, to anything in between, right? A birthday card for the kids. I mean, whatever it is. I have a realtor who has a great idea. I love this one. She gets the kids' birthdays, and every year she sends them a birthday card with a $2 bill in it. Kind of creative, really memorable. And so just stay top of mind with your sphere and get that referral network really working for you. And then, of course, choosing the right vendor partners. It definitely matters who's going to get your deal to the end done well, right? Like, it's not just about getting the deal closed. It's about doing a great job and building that personal connection. And when things go wrong, can you overcome hurdles? Can you reach me on a Saturday? Can you reach your lender on a Saturday? So there's definitely a difference when it comes to relationships, and choosing the right vendor partners is key. Oops. Here's I know you can't see Elle's face. This is really what she looks like. She's the pretty blonde that I'm standing with there.
There she is.
Yeah, there she is. And then there's my husband at the top with me. And then Kelly is our escrow operations director. You will never see her. She's the one that works in the background on all the yucky stuff that nobody else wants to do. Here's the QR code to download our app and kind of play with that. And all of my socials and my contact information. I really appreciated y'all joining us today. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm happy to do that if the Jens think we have time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to say I think this is amazing, and I think it creates so many opportunities for people to be shown as the expert, especially using that app. I mean, I'm already picturing green screen behind me talking about it, because I think when you're empowered with data, you can be, not only can you be seen as expert, but you are the expert, right? Because there really truly is opportunity out there. So I think is that my hand that automatically went up because I went like that?
Oh, yes, that's really cute.
That's adorable. Okay, so yeah, if y'all will go ahead and put your hand up, I'll call y'all. How do I lower my hand now? There it goes. Okay, I will call you based on how you raise your hand. I'll do the best of my ability. So who has anyone?
No questions?
I definitely want the slides. So they're going to email those to me. I'll make sure that y'all get those. And definitely using the app. Any questions, guys? I'm sure that y'all will come up with some. I'm definitely going to forward their information as well. Anything, y'all?
And if anyone has any questions, please.
Is that me?
Oh, that's me. That's Elle. If anyone has any questions afterwards, any title questions, we make ourselves available after hours and on the weekend. So please feel free.
I want to say something. It's not a question. I just want to say thank you guys, because this was very informative. And I think I have a lot of good bits of information I can share with my clients.
Thank you. Good luck. I hope you do. That's awesome.
Yeah, I told you, Jens, this is going to be great
awesome.
info.
That was such great information and so clear, Amy. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
We are so grateful that y'all took the time to be here. Thank you, Amy and Elle. And guys, thank you, all of our realtor partners, for being here. I'm going to be posting this recording in the group. It'll also be posted, if you're in the Buzz challenge, I'm going to be posting it in the app underneath the learning library. So that's where you'll find that. And so we are really grateful. I will make sure that we email out all of the slides as well as the QR code. And make sure that y'all get in touch with Amy and Elle if y'all have any title questions. I'm sure that they will be there for you. So thank you guys so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
so
And thank
much.
you.
Thank
We
you,
so
Jen.
Jen, for having me.
you.
Absolutely. We so appreciate you. Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.